Theme of this week is the undo list. We're going to explore a couple of different ways that we need to undo things, and that's in very sort of mundane and concrete things that you can take off your to-do list, as well as mental things that are weighing you down, and maybe you would be a lot more functional and thrive a lot better if you could undo some of those things. So we're going to think about the idea of an undo list, which is obviously meant to be the opposite of a to-do list. So basically, the core belief that I'm presenting is that you are doing too much. I may not know everything about your situation, but I think that this is pretty much the case for every woman in medicine that I have encountered, that we're really trying to take on too much. We have perfectionism that's driving us to feel like we have to be good at everything. We have sort of societal pressures for a lot of things that we feel like we should be doing. The word should, I've mentioned this before, should is definitely something that gets us into trouble. And we're just doing too much. The other thing is that, most of you guys and most of the women that I've worked with are really, really high performing and actually are good at a lot of things and may actually enjoy a lot of things. So it can be hard to figure out where to focus and how to sort of cone down your time when there may be a lot of things that you're good at. You maybe getting a lot of opportunities because you're good at so many things. But the truth is you can't do all of it. So there may be some things that you're good at, but you don't really enjoy. There may be some things that you aren't so good at, but you feel like you should be doing. So really, how do we begin to decide what to take off our list? How do we kind of begin to sort of untangle this big ball of string and figure out, how do we get down to a manageable plate so that we can feel like we can sustain ourselves? And then more so, once you've kind of figured out what to declutter, how do you think about what to never start doing? So applying this once you've kind of like gotten the garbage out, then not taking on new things if they don't fit within the overall goals that you have. And then from a kind of a little bit more metaphorical sense, how do you kind of decide and protect what comes into your brain? How do you protect your cortical real estate, so to speak? And thinking about how you use the limited brain space. So that's sort of the amount of decisions that you have to make. That's the things that you think about, the amount of stuff you try to hold in your brain versus putting it somewhere else. So kind of all of those decisions are going to be things that we have to work through as we go from our current state of like really, really just doing too much to getting to a more manageable list of things that we're doing. So first of all, to begin to think about this, you're going to go back and draw back off of the work that you've already done in the previous weeks. So pull out the mission statement, pull out your vision of the future. That could have been postcard from the future, or just kind of some of your free writing where you were talking about the visions of the future, and then pull out the values exercise that you did in the perfect job module, and review all of those things and kind of look at what might be jumping out as themes of things that you really, really enjoy doing. What types of things are showing up, and what is the sort of meter that you're putting. The mission statement is kind of the meter that you're going to hold everything up against. So anytime there's something that either comes your way as an opportunity, or when you're examining all the things you're currently doing, you're kind of holding it up to the mission statement and saying, does this fit within this mission, or does this actually take me away from achieving this mission? So have all of those. Okay, so then we need a few mindset shifts. Why do we all take on so much? Why are we all doing so much and burning ourselves out? So we need permissions. I'm going to give you 3 permissions that are going to maybe feel easy, maybe feel like, oh, of course, Emma, no problem, or maybe feel really challenging and things that we need to work through in the live sessions and really explore what limiting beliefs you have about why you have so much resistance to these things. Okay, so the first one is permission to rest. So you need sleep. We know you need, 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep a night. That's what humans need. So if you're not getting that, why? And is some part of it that you're not allowing yourself or accepting that you need that? I think that sometimes we have a narrative that we're lazy if we take too much time for sleep, or we're unproductive, we're losing productive hours if we're not sleeping. If we're sleeping and not doing something during those hours. So think about that, but you have permission to rest. Not only do you have permission, I want you to regard it with the same sort of vigor that you do any of the other tasks. So I want you to be the best at rest. I want you to rest like it's your job. I want you to brag about how much rest that you get. And the sort of belief shift that you can use to start yourself off is that your body and mind are restoring while you rest so that you can be even better tomorrow. You don't have to tie it to a productivity or performance metric, but I know that a lot of us are starting there. Rest for rest's sake is perfectly fine. But I think for a lot of us who are kind of competitive and high performing, framing rest in a sort of active way will help you to get to doing it, and to getting it accomplished, so to speak. Okay, so the second permission is permission to play. So play is just doing something that, doing an activity that's for its own sake. It doesn't have a purpose, it doesn't accomplish anything. It's just fun. So I want you to have permission to play. I want you to look for opportunities to play. Playfulness is the root of resourcefulness. So in order to be able to move from sort of a stuck place, like I can't see any new answers here, I only see, like A or B, and they're both bad choices. We need to be able to kind of just think sort of creatively. I've sort of made you guys do sort of like silly, absurd little exercises, and that's because I know that by getting into a little bit of a mood of playfulness, you can often find a solution that you maybe couldn't see when you were in a little bit more of that kind of structured work mentality. There's a lot of animal studies on how play has actually improved neuroplasticity. And so I think that, thinking about play as a time to allow your mind to make new connections and it will make you a better problem solver the more that you play. And that it also helps with communication, because being able to kind of not be so precious and not be so serious about everything can often help you to say the hard things and to find the right words that when we're not allowed to play and in that way we kind of can't find. So there are a lot of benefits to play, but I don't want you to get stuck in I am playing as a kind of as a form of work. That could be another way that you could do it. Like this play is for a purpose, because that's sort of the fundamental nature of play, is that it doesn't have a purpose. But this is really hard. And that, I talk to women who are really sort of productivity focused, and this is incredibly threatening to sort of ask them to play. So, think about what it's threatening when I'm asking you to play. What identity are you holding that's scared of playing? And what new identity could you take on that's playful and kind of open to that? In her book, Big Magic, which is one of my favorites and is on the book list, Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this, and that's kind of specific to the artist content and trying to context and trying to capture, good ideas for writing and for creation of art. But I think it really applies here because we in medical field are problem solvers, and that does require a lot of creativity similar to an artistic content, and that she really talks about having kind of a trickster energy as the key energy for good creative process. And when you can, kind of see yourself as a trickster who's like outsmarting the universe and kind of laughing along with the jokes instead of seeing yourself as a victim or as someone who's not able to accomplish anything, then you can really be a lot more successful. So I think that that's a good idea. And happy to talk more about it on the calls if you guys want to talk more about how you kind of develop your trickster energy. But for right now, permission to play is your permission. And then your third permission that you're going to have as you're making your undo list is permission to be good enough. So this one's also hard because a lot of us have perfectionistic tendencies, and the idea that we would not make everything, kind of absolutely perfect or as absolutely best we could make it is really, really, really challenging. But that what I need you to think about is that takes energy, that takes mental real estate every time you sort of focus and focus and focus on all those details. So this is a good example, like documentation is a really good example. So, a lot of us may obsess over our notes and does this paragraph sound nice and did I say everything well and oh my gosh I had a typo and oh should I frame it this way, might this be offensive, and some of this is good. I mean, we want to make sure we're having person-centered language and not saying anything in an offensive way. Those are good filters to put your notes through, but sort of pretty prose, well-crafted sentences, or even sentences at all, and certainly spelling, shouldn't really be something that you're worrying about when you're trying to write your daily notes. Just get them done. Done is better than perfect. You have to do a lot of them, and maybe there's a time and a place to make that perfect note. If it's a letter that you're sending to try to advocate for something for a patient, that might be a time to pay a little bit more attention. But on your daily notes that really only you or your team mates might be reading, those can just be good enough, right? So good examples. Other things could be your nutrition, like try to be healthy, but you don't have to be perfect in every single way, and like make everything from scratch, and like be organic all the time, and all of that, like good enough is good enough. So figure out sort of what a good enough version of that is. I think there could be a lot of examples that you could think about. I'd love to hear examples of how you guys are practicing sort of good enough in your life. I mean, I think then the other concept that goes into this is that you can't be exceptional in all areas at all times. So even if there's better, like you could do something better. So you may not look at something and be like, this isn't my best, I could do this better. But today you have to do 16 other things too. Then that's the best that you could do today, given the circumstances that you have today and given the reality of the world that you have. Okay. So now that you have your permissions to rest, permission to play, permission to be good enough, now we're going to start to like really think about this stuff and get a bit concrete about what you should keep doing and what you can think about outsourcing. So I made this little table to kind of help you break through it. So on the left-hand side, are kind of the questions. What activities do you love to do? What activities are sort of neutral? And then what activities do you really dislike doing? And then the middle column is kind of how to classify those. So things that you love doing are soul nourishing. Like you actually get joy out of them if you anchor it properly, and we'll talk about that. But those are things that not only are they sort of day-to-day activities that are sort of essential for keeping your life moving, but you actually like them. And they actually kind of reinforce your identity and reinforce your like sort of goodness as a person. And then neutral activities are kind of a lot of things, right? Like there's just a lot of stuff that has to happen, particularly if you have kids or pets or parents or any of the sort of like caregiving duties. There's a lot of stuff. But even if you live by yourself, there's bills that need to be paid and food needs to be prepared and dishes need to be washed and all of those things that are kind of probably neutral for most of us. It's not like we have a lot of strong feelings about them. So that's kind of a lot of stuff in the neutral category. And for those, we're going to use a priority payoff matrix to decide, if it's something that you should outsource or something that you should just do it and not complain about it. And then the last category is things that you really dislike. So these are kind of soul-sucking activities. And these we need to get rid of. If it's an essential ADL, like if there's one of your just like day-to-day keeping yourself and your people alive things, then you got to outsource that. If you really, really hate it and you feel like it's sucking your soul to a disproportionate degree, that's a great thing to outsource. And then if it's just kind of like, oh yeah, that's not actually essential, this doesn't really fit within the mission, then those are things that we're going to undo. We're going to let go. We're going to give those things away. And there may be different ways that you need to navigate your exit strategy on getting out of some of those things, depending on what they are. Okay, so I moved off that slide a little faster than I wanted, but that's fine. We'll start to look at um, some of the quotes that I collected from some actual people that I talked to about this. These are other women in medicine. And I loved this one because she like really got the concept. So much like the reduce is the best part of the recycle, reduce, reuse, recycle, circle, don't do was my favorite part of balancing. And so for her, thinking really carefully about what she did say yes to. So kind of that second phase. And this was things like volunteering in the kids' classrooms. She didn't like doing that, so she just didn't do it. She sent money instead, not putting her kids in instruments or other kind of enrichment activities when they were younger. That would have involved a lot of driving around and um, a lot of things that would have taken a lot of time and energy. Maximizing the activities that are at the school, so they're already there, so it's sort of less impact on who's driving them around. I love this one, getting kids, to independence. So outsourcing things to the kids themselves, as soon as you can. So can you fix your own breakfast? Can you get dressed by yourself? Can you do your own laundry? Can you clean your own room? Just really moving the kids through in an age appropriate fashion. That's genius. All drivers help out with transportation. So I'm assuming that means she's got teenagers helping out, and then doing small birthday parties instead of big birthday parties that was something that obviously was a values-based decision to not waste a lot of time, money, attention, worry, mental real estate on throwing the perfect birthday party. So I loved some of these ideas. A great example of how to declutter your life in ways that are really aligned with your values. Okay, here's another one. Love this. Like, mission is to be a physician executive, right? I love being a physician executive, and I bet her mission statement talks all about all the ways she's helpful and amazing in that role, and that a lot of the home tasks were not bringing her joy. So she just kind of outsourced everything: cleaning, laundry, food prep, driving. I'm sure there could be more. So this is another great example. And then this one was kind of answering, some of the pushback that I get when I talk about outsourcing is about money. And oh, but I have to hire people and I have to spend a lot of money. And it's also one of my goals to save money and to be thrifty. And so this was a really cool reframe to sort of reframe that as opportunities to share your resources and share the wealth that you've been given. Um, so, thinking about paying people for cleaning or paying people for food preparation or things like that was really a way to share, and so that we could feel good about doing that. And then also remembering how valuable your time is, right? I mean, depending on what your specialty is and what your what type of practice setting you work at, your time bills out at a certain rate, even in the system where none of us is getting what we're worth, and we could argue about that. But the truth is that your time is incredibly valuable, both for actually working, so outsourcing things so that you can spend time working in which you have a good earning potential, and then also your time is valuable in that you need time to rest, you need time to play, you need time to take care of yourself, take care of your health, all of those kinds of things, and that's sort of an invaluable or priceless type of calculus. And so therefore, spending $20 an hour to hire someone to help you is really probably a pretty good return on your investment. Okay, so this is a sort of concrete list of some of the things that our other fierce friends have actually outsourced. Meal prep, people talked about hiring someone using care.com or other similar site to actually hire someone to come to their house and actually prep their meals so that it would be ready to go for them throughout the week. House cleaning was a great one. Laundry service. There were a couple of online services that I hadn't heard of before, so I'm going to make a document kind of with all of the specific resources that everybody um, suggested, and I'll have that in the module. Gardening, lawn care, car cleaning, grocery delivery, nanny, taxes, financial planning, organizing, driving, and then getting takeout, kind of getting back to the food. I think food is a big one for people because it's so often, right? We have to eat 3 meals a day, every single day. So being able to outsource anything about your food, whether it's grocery delivery or takeout or some kind of a meal prep or meal kit, can be super impactful, because that's such a large part of our energy and of taking care of ourselves. The thing that was sort of insightful for me when I kind of put this question to the group was what people kicked back, and I was kind of thinking like, okay, what can I outsource now? Like, what are these creative things? And that when all this list started coming back, I was like, well, yeah, I already like have a house cleaner, and I don't do my own taxes, and I have a financial planner, and we use Ubers, and so that I was really already thinking like, oh, I'm already kind of outsourcing a lot of these things. So then I had gratitude for all of the ways that I've already figured out how to make my life easier so that I can free space for the things that really make me joyful and allow me to kind of serve to my highest and greatest impact. So I'd love to hear if you have other things that you already do to outsource and make your life easier, or if there are areas of your life that you would like to be able to problem solve how to outsource that. Definitely let's talk about that on the group calls or in the community um, chats. Okay, so then how do we think about applying these concepts to work? So now I want you to pull out your ideal day at work and your time audit exercises and take a look at those and kind of compare, what did you say was your ideal day versus where are you spending your time and what might be out of alignment? What on the time audit is showing up, taking a lot of your time that's not on your ideal day? So jot those things down. That might need to become an undo list or a stop doing list. And again, the exit strategies that you might have to have for these will depend on what kind of tasks they are. If they're essential tasks, you may need to figure out a way to delegate them to someone else because you can't just not do them. They need to be done. There may be a patient care specific thing or something related to a project that sort of has to get done. So those would be great opportunities to delegate and try to identify someone else who may be qualified or interested that you could offload that onto. You may need to have a conversation with their manager about role expectations and, if you're spending too much time doing certain tasks that aren't really the things you want to be doing, thinking about having an open and honest conversation with your manager or your boss or whoever sort of determines these things and say, how can we start to move my workday closer to my ideal work day? And like, these are the elements of ideal work that I want to work towards. I want to be, for me, when I did this exercise, my current job was I was inpatient all the time. I was a supervising attending, so I wasn't doing that much patient care because other people were kind of doing the face-to-face, and then I was in a more supervisory role, and I was in an academic environment in which publishing and doing academic things were kind of the expectation. And then my ideal job was that I was going to be clinical, doing face-to-face care in a community-based setting, and not have academic obligations, such as writing. So those were pretty discordant to begin with. And I did have a, conversation about how can I start to move this towards my ideal a little bit more. Is it possible that I can pick up a little bit of a primary panel so that I'm having a little bit more of a kind of like invested clinical role? Is there a way that, I could do more community-based work? And is there, what's this whole thing with academia? How much is that really an expectation versus how much of that can I opt out of? Now, through that process, my assessment was that that job was just completely out of alignment with everything that I wanted. There was really no way to move any of those things. It was kind of ridiculous that I even tried, but I did try. But those may be things that you do to, ways that you can try to navigate getting more towards your ideal job, taking things off the plate that are really out of alignment. I did undo a lot, and that really helped. I will say that in the in between time where I wasn't sure that I was ready to leave the job, but I was trying to kind of get to a more sustainable place, I did at least, sort of quit some of the committees that, the academic committees or the hospital committees. I did sort of like get off of some of those. I did quit caring about publishing and getting, that meant I had to accept that I wasn't ever going to get promoted, but I just accepted that. And I did sort of dial back on the number of projects that I was doing. So, one of the things that I did was a lot of quality improvement work, and that I had sort of decided that I was going to do like 3 or 4 projects in a year. And then I just kind of dialed it back and said, I'm just doing 1 project a year, and set that as my sort of goal and expectation. And my supervisor accepted that. So I was able to kind of scale back a lot on some of the things that I was doing. And that really did actually help, even though the job was still out of alignment and I was never going to really be thriving in the way that I am now. I was at least able to get to a surviving state due to those undos or stop doings. And then there might be stuff that you just care less about. And these could be like documentation or your own personal knowledge base. Maybe you don't need to read every journal or every new article that comes out in your field. You may just say, okay, well, my knowledge base is good enough for right now, so I'm just going to care less about that. And that could be a way that you get that off your plate for right now. Okay, shifting gears away from work and now kind of bringing it back close to home to your body and mind. We talked about healthy habits, and we've talked about building a strong container, both a physical container that's going to kind of be that vehicle that's going to take you through your life, and having a strong mind. So what are the things that you need to stop doing in order to support that strong mind and body container so that you can continue to do all of the hard things? Because even after you've done your undo list, even after you've pared down, even after you've delegated, the stuff that's left on your plate is still going to be challenging. You've chosen a career in healthcare. It's never going to be easy. And so, one of the principles that I teach is that you need to have a strong container in both mind and body so that you can do the hard things. So what are the not so helpful habits that you've collected over the years that may be keeping you from having the strongest container possible? and therefore limiting the capacity that you'll have to be able to go out and do amazing things. So these might be coping skills or maladaptive behaviors that we've started over our life. They may have been helpful to carrying us to where we are now, but now they are unhelpful in where we are now. These may be things that we saw modeled by peers or mentors. These may be things that were rewarded in other settings. Things like pushing yourself too much, sacrificing your own well-being, or kind of getting into a martyr state, numbing, using food, alcohol, drugs, social media, TV watching, just to kind of tune out. Not sleeping, we talked about that before. Not resting, like not really allowing yourself downtime. Going it alone, thinking that if it's going to be done right, I have to do it myself, or I don't really need help. I'm smart and I'm strong and I can do everything. Chasing external standards of excellence or winning is definitely a big one that we can get into. Kind of looking for those gold stars, and then also external standards of beauty, whether that's about weight or age or just a certain way that you're supposed to look, skin, anything like that. Those are other things that we might be carrying with us. So a lot of those are kind of easy opportunities to look for things that you can stop doing to support your strong body-mind container. In addition to things we've talked about in previous weeks about things you might want to start doing that would be healthy habits that you want to back in. Both are going to be super impactful towards changing your situation. Stopping something that's not beneficial is equally as impactful as adding something that is beneficial. Okay, so here we are. What are we going to commit to stop? 3 things that are not aligned with your overall mission, vision, and values. So write down right now kind of what your 3 things are. You can come back to this, take your time to sort of think about what your 3 things are, and then kind of rate them, on how hard or easy you think it's going to be. And hopefully we've got a couple of things that are super easy. Maybe, it's super easy to just not worry about your kids' lunchbox being fancy and they can just buy their school lunch instead. Easy. Just stop worrying about the school lunch the lunchbox, and let them buy school lunch. Do it tomorrow. Or maybe it's a little bit harder, like trying to cut back on your social media use, and that may involve some nested habits, that you put in place of like where do you put your phone in a drawer, or do you set a timer, or set some parental controls for yourself, or whatever it is. You may need to think about how you do that. Maybe limiting alcohol intake or other other sort of like dietary changes that you want to make. Those things could definitely be undoing, and you can rate how hard or easy that they will be. And then there may be things at work that you want to stop doing. Maybe there is a specific committee that you're on that you're like, oh, I want to get off of this one. It doesn't really fit in with my overall profile anymore. So thinking about who do you need to talk to and how do you sort of get off of that role. So that might be like a medium, because it involves other people other than you. Just stop doing something. Okay, so think about that. If they're easy, no brainer, do them. If they're medium or hard, then that might be something that you bring to the call on Thursday, and we talk about how we can make a plan for you to stop doing it. In the homework, there will be priority payoff matrix that you can use to sort of categorize your activities and how hard or easy they are to continue doing them. So this is kind of for like, this can help you decide which things you might want to take off. If there's something that's going to be high impact to stop and easy to do, that's definitely do it. If there's something that's going to be high impact and hard, you might decide yes, and you want to get support on it. If there's something that's going to be hard and low impact, like it's going to be really hard to get out of that thing and it's not actually taking up a whole lot of your time, or it's not bothering you so much, then maybe just keep that. And then if there's something that would be what do we have, a low impact and easy, then those may be things that you want to do, but maybe we don't prioritize them right now because we want to go for the easy and high impact things instead. Okay, so put your 3 things, write them down, post them in the member site, and as well as any other key distinctions from this call, and then come to the call on Thursday ready to talk about your ideas of undo, what aspects of undo kind of stood out for you and are the ones that you want to focus on right now, what knowledge, skills, or areas of negotiation might we need, what would have to be true, and what mindset shifts. These are all the things that we want to focus on. If something didn't make sense, definitely bring that to the call, and I can be happy to explain it. You can also email if you need clarification on anything. All right, and that is it for this module. Do your homeworks, stop doing your undo lists, and I can't wait to hear about it when we're together next.